All right, hello everyone and welcome to today's panel. Sorry about my voice, late last night and you know how it is. So today's topic is the coming war between government and private crypto, which I think is always an important topic, but perhaps even more so now in the current climate and especially with the US elections and seeing how and when things might change. I've got three great panelists here alongside me, so we're going to dig into the conversation. Maybe we'll start off with a quick round of intros, though. We'll just go down the line. Andrew, starting with you first.
So, I'm Andrew Clifford. I'm the Chief Executive of Bitcoin Unlimited that's been working in the space on Bitcoin full node software for the last 8 years. And we've launched our own coin, Nexa coin. I'm not going to say too much about Nexa coin because when it comes to this particular topic, and we use private crypto as a term, we're talking about Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, all coins launched by individuals outside of government control is what we call private crypto. So Nexa's one of 14,000.
Hi, Testing. Hi, I'm Andrew Stone. I'm the lead developer of Bitcoin Unlimited and the founder of Nexa. He kind of explained what Nexa is, so I'll just move it right on.
Oh, there you go. Hi, I'm Robbie. I'm one of the directors and the creative director of the Litecoin Foundation, which is a not-for-profit that looks after the development and adoption of Litecoin.
All right, thanks everyone. Robbie, before we go further, were you the guy behind Litecoin becoming a meme coin?
I'm definitely not going to comment. The identity remains a mystery. Let's just put it that way, but I thought I'd done the shirt today anyway. One of the meme coin shirts. There you go.
Love it. Okay, so maybe I think let's start with talking about the current relationship between government and private crypto in Australia, because obviously we're in Australia. We can touch on America and other countries as well. But, and again, I'll open this up to anyone who wants to take the question. What do you think of the current relationship? Is the Australian government friendly towards crypto, getting more friendly? Just sort of anyone's gauge on where we are right now and any thoughts you might have.
I guess that's a bit difficult because I'm living in New Zealand.
New Zealand government then?
Yeah, New Zealand government actually is not terribly favourable to private crypto, and I think that was similar in Australia from what I've read on the subject in Australia. The situation is that for the last 100-odd years, the issuance of money has been a government function, the government reserve banks. And what they've tried to do is give some level of independence to the central banks, the reserve banks like RBA. And the governments have kind of kept them on a leash. And even if you look at the US Federal Reserve, which they say, oh, that's a private bank, well, 100% of the shares are owned by the US Treasury, and whatever profits or losses it makes goes to the US Treasury. And the Bank of England, of course, pretends to be independent, but again follows orders. So they're not really independent, so governments have control over money supply. And there's no doubt that when Bitcoin appeared on the scene, it did take a long time for the market to appreciate its potential, several years. And going back to when I bought my very first Bitcoin back in the end of 2012, I bought it from Barclays Bank, which is one of the big four retail banks in the UK. And now the banking system has aligned with the government against private crypto. And that's what I'm seeing here in Australia, anecdotal evidence that some people with some banks are having problems maintaining their accounts if they withdraw from exchanges. So there's definitely a financial censorship occurring in the banking system, and the government is tolerating that. I'll let the others comment now.
Can I talk about America, US?
Yes, please.
Yes. I don't know how much you guys, I'm from the US. I'm not sure how much you guys look at what's going on in the US, but it's basically like, it's a circus, right? It is just like a spectator, like, frenzy of what in the hell the government's doing, right? The right likes it, I guess, but they didn't 4 years ago. Half of the left appears to like it, but the other half doesn't, right? I mean, we have like, Gary Gensler, he actually enabled the, exchange-traded funds, right? But simultaneously, the left couldn't like take that win, right? They had to hate it, right? Why? So it is completely inscrutable. It might be inscrutable to you guys. It's not because you're in Australia. It's completely inscrutable for Americans as well.
Yeah, I mean, from an Australian perspective, I mean, I've been sort of dealing with exchanges and various other clients and players in the space since about 2015 in Australia. And I have noticed a distinct change. And it does go in cycles. So you've got to understand that the government is also trying to pilot their own CBDC. So last year, in about August, they had the unfortunate, task of announcing to the public that their pilot failed for the CBDC, which was awesome. I mean, big thumbs up for that. But what they've been doing, and they've actually said this, is that they've openly discussed the fact that they've been borrowing cues from the industry in terms of digital assets like the private crypto and the decentralized cryptocurrencies that you guys are invested in or might want to invest in. They've been borrowing cues from them, looking at attributes, looking at features, looking at how they've scaled, looking at how they've been adopted, who they've been adopted by, what the friction points are, what the benefits are, what the drawbacks are, and then trying to apply it to their own pilot. But the reality is, it's fundamentally flawed, as you said before, that the entire role of a CBDC is to serve that function of printing money better, right, and controlling money better. The problem is, this is programmable money, and this is money which they can trace. And so what they're actually doing is, it's like a Venn diagram. They're borrowing little bits here, like going, oh, it's frictionless, and it's much cheaper to send overseas and faster. Well, it's already fast to send a transaction overseas. Our banking system's been tokenized for nearly a decade. They just don't want to get rid of the fees. And then over the other side, they're looking at how much can we control and surveil people that are using it. And so I think that, fundamentally, I actually think they're trying to foster innovation so they can borrow cues from innovation. And in terms of stifling it here, the exchanges are fine here. Exchanges aren't being debanked like a few years ago. All the exchanges are fine here. Individuals are fine here. Sure, there are edge cases, but for the most part, it's pretty safe.
Do you think CBDCs are inevitable?
Yes. Unfortunately, sorry.
Yeah. Any other takes? I mean, inevitable?
They are inevitable, and in fact, they're already out there. There's one in Nigeria that was rolled out very quickly, and the public do not like it at all. It has got some usage, and what they've done is to try and force people to use it by literally printing less money and making much less money available from the ATMs. So people in Lagos are finding that if they want to do business, they just cannot get enough cash. So the government's trying to force them to use the CBDC Naira over there, and they're having a lot of pushback. But it is an end goal, and they're determined. There's another system operating in Jamaica at the moment. So they are being rolled out. And I would just say there's about 160 central banks in the world, and something like 140 of them have got active programs to actually roll out a CBDC. But some of the programs have been started and installed. Some have been limited. In Australia, there's actually been some political pushback where they're saying that there won't be accounts between individuals and the RBA. The RBA will only be able to operate it on a warehousing aspect, say with the major retail banks. So I think we'll see them for sure servicing major retail banks at least. But the ones that reach out to the public individually, that is something that will happen here and there.
Yeah, it's actually just gone up. So it's 183 central banks, and they control 98% of the world's GDP. So you can look, there's a really helpful website called CBDC Tracker, and you can go and you can look at where each state and each nation or country or reserve bank, where their pilot program is. And you're right, there are some that are actually active at the moment. Obviously, the most prominent one being the Chinese yuan, the yuan, which has a penetration of, divisible probably about 20%. So there's 256 million people that use the digital yuan, and I think there's 1.2 billion in China, if my math... Anyway, so roughly that. And I guess the biggest problem there is that it is the last piece of the puzzle in terms of ultimate surveillance. And it affects things called your social score and various other things. So, yeah.
How do we fight back against it?
I think the reality is that unless everyone pulls together, and I mean it quite seriously, unless everyone actually pulled together and revolted against it, it's going to happen. It'll be about how severe it is in terms of the permissions that we don't even opt into in terms of our privacy. Like, I seriously think that we're not in too bad a state in Australia, given the fact that they couldn't even get a pilot right. I'm not a technical person, and in 2017 I made my own currency for fun in an afternoon. I mean, it's obviously a lot more sophisticated now, but it doesn't take, I think it was $78 million to pilot. So I think we're fortunate in Australia. The reality is that it's going to happen in some way, shape or form. It's just about how much control, how much transparency that we get from it.
Andrew.
Can I jump in for, yeah.
Yes, please.
Actually, in the United States, I'm not sure if it's inevitable. There are senators that are sitting today that are campaigning against central bank digital currencies and just claiming that we should not do that, right? I think they want to carve out different spaces. And I think that goes with the philosophy maybe, or a theory that I have, which is maybe the entire government is actually not against this, right? And one obvious reason is if your fiat system is beginning to fail, it's good for your population to have a means of saving, right? Like a life raft. So, you know, I don't think inside the U.S. government even there's any consensus or thought.
Staying on topic of the U.S. government, obviously we just had the big election. We've got news, I mean, Trump's in, Gensler is out, the House and the Senate have turned Republican. Trump is surrounded by, you know, pro-crypto people now. How big of a impact do you think that's actually going to have on the crypto industry?
I think we're just looking at it right now, right? But I thought it was fascinating that I think crypto positions itself perfectly because if the Democrats had won, then it's an inflation play, right? And then if the Republicans had won, it's a sound money and, you know, sort of that kind of play. So,
do you think the reserve, the Bitcoin reserve that the government is talking about, you know, the U.S. government's going to buy or hold on to the Bitcoin they have, you think that will come to fruition, or that's just talking points?
I don't know, that's a real crystal ball ask right there, right? But the U.S. government does have a lot of Bitcoins that they've confiscated from, you know, criminal activity. So that, taking on that might be a real no-brainer, right? But to actually start buying, I'm not going to make a guess on that.
I would tend to agree with that the US government may well try and hold on to some of the seized assets rather than auction them off. I think it's actually several 100,000, which they have in custody at the moment. I know the German government has actually disposed of a lot of the Bitcoin it had. I tend to think that governments may well keep Bitcoin as part of their reserve asset portfolio, but it would never be a huge percentage.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think that makes a lot of sense.
So when is you know, the fiat going to be backed by the Bitcoin?
One day.
Yeah.
All right. We haven't spoken much about privacy coins per se. Curious to know if, what you guys' thoughts are of that. The kind of the opposite of a CDBC. You have CDBC where the government controls everything. You've got Bitcoin and most currencies now where it's all public, so the government can see who's doing everything. And then you have privacy coins, which are your transactions are hidden and who owns them can be more hidden. Curious if anyone has takes on those and whether they will ever truly take off and how they will take off.
I'll start on that. There's a couple of really strong privacy coins, Zcash or Zcash, depending where you are, and Monero. but I have heard that they've had problems on the exchanges being delisted. They're just so private that that governments are really quite anti on money laundering concerns, and I think that probably is a legitimate concern to a certain extent. So I think where we find the beauty of Bitcoin is it's quasi-private. You can do chain analysis, and there's huge databases of chain analysis that's now available to the exchanges and anyone interested in Bitcoin history. But there's huge gaps in it about ownership, so it gives a partial view. And some coins really have probably a minimal privacy aspect because they don't really care. The whole problem with the central bank digital currency, particularly where everyone in the nation has got effectively an account with the central bank, is that they have total financial surveillance. And because now we don't live off the land like we did 100 years ago, we have to transact to survive, and we have to transact several times a day to survive. So it's actually financial freedom is extremely important to just normal personal freedoms in the society today. 150 years ago, that really wasn't the case. So things have changed, so we have to push back against total financial surveillance. That's my main concern.
It's pretty funny because the UN has now got economic freedom and financial privacy as a basic human right. So I think that's something which we didn't see 20 years ago, and it probably wasn't necessitated, or needed much earlier than that. Privacy coins, I mean, the obvious issue is the delisting with various centralized exchanges. I think the future for me is really a world where there is features. So there's a privacy feature or a confidential transaction feature that you can use either sort of the clear blockchain, so you might use Bitcoin without that feature, and then you might use Bitcoin with that feature. And that's something we developed in 2022 for Litecoin, which is quite literally at a flick of a switch, you can change between using clear Litecoin and what we call VPM or MWeb, depending on which one you're doing. So virtual private money or MWeb. And what it allows you to do is obfuscate either your sending address or receiving address, or the sending or receiving amount. So it's not fully private. You're not cloaking or concealing things to the extent that you would be with Zcash or Monero. What you're doing is it's affording you a basic amount of privacy. So by no means should it be seen as a full private solution, but it's necessary in day-to-day transactions, just like 1.6 billion people use a VPN. So, I mean, if you think about a VPN, it doesn't mean that you're completely private online. It affords you a little bit of privacy, the privacy that you need. And the same with what we activated on Litecoin. And, if it's anything like SegWit, which those in 2017 might remember, but Litecoin became the testbed for SegWit for Bitcoin, and Bitcoin later adopted it. Hopefully we'll see something like that happen soon.
What can, the average person do to help maybe fight back against government overreach with, you can lobby, you can go to your local representatives and say, we don't want a CBDC and stuff like that, and you get enough support that can work. But is there anything else you think people can and should be doing to help, the crypto movement in general? Andrew, maybe?
I don't know. That's a tough one, right? I think individual action, obviously, everyone here is probably holding some crypto. That's your first step, right?
For me, I think it's all right, so you own crypto. That's the first step. I think if you didn't know about the cryptocurrency beforehand and you just sort of FOMO'd in, sorry that I see a few degens in here. I had to learn some new things because it's been a while, it's been a couple of months and my terminology's out of date. So, you FOMO in and you haven't done your research, and now it's your time to educate yourself on why you should actually hold that as an investment or use it in your everyday life. So I think that's one thing. I'd run a node. So if you've got any decentralized cryptocurrency or even private cryptocurrencies that allow you to run a node, run a full node. It helps secure the network. So you can do that with Bitcoin and Litecoin. You can do that with a bunch of other things. I don't know about any proof of stake stuff. Sorry, someone's going to have to tell me. You can run a node. You can also mine. So one of the things which, we forget is that the algorithm was set up so that initially you could mine using your computer. And now, obviously, it's been taken over and centralized to some extent by big mining companies, no offense to the sponsors. But the big mining companies out there controlling the hash rate, it doesn't mean you can't still mine yourself. And I think if you want ultimate privacy in your life and to be free of, I guess, the government control and rule, there's absolutely no reason why you can't go off-grid. The exact same way as a lot of preppers, but then also just other people have gone off-grid with their electricity. You can go off-grid with your currency and your financial, I guess, livelihood as well.
I will just say about pushing back, the main method, of course, is not to vote for politicians who are anti-crypto. And as crypto ownership spreads within the world community, there'll be fewer and fewer of these politicians. So actually I think that's happened in the States, that there's been a huge growth in private crypto ownership, and that's why we're seeing a big political pushback against government overreach and clamping down on it. And the other thing with the central bank digital currencies is often public feedback is invited as part of their process. They try to be transparent about what they're up to. They do reports, so that's fair enough, good on them. But they do invite comments, and I think everyone just takes some time out. If you see the local central bank requesting feedback on its ideas, just tell them what you think about importance of privacy, and try and push back that way with your comments.
I think you made a really good point about as more people get crypto, they'll stop voting for anti-crypto politicians. I was listening to Rachel from Binance yesterday. She was talking about how 650 million people roughly own crypto now, and that number is obviously just going to keep going up. Once we get to 1 billion, 2 billion, it's hard to imagine too many anti-crypto politicians getting elected around the world.
And also, now that I've had a chance to think about it, once you have it, use it and replace it, because there's a lot of people come out with statistics saying, a certain percentage is being used illegally, right? But if you're using it in PayPal for, purchasing groceries or whatever, then you're going to be one of those people who is using it legitimately, and so that's going to drown out these, political voices that are pointing fingers.
One of the, I saw someone else say this, so it's not my idea, but the best things anyone can do for crypto adoption is if you have a business, accept crypto. Allow other people to pay you in some sort of cryptocurrency, because then you're completely subverting the whole centralized entity, and you're literally doing what the Bitcoin white paper said, peer-to-peer transaction.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one. The fact that a lot of people still think it's magical money, the reality is when you can actually see your cryptocurrency or the currency being used for goods, services, and you actually get those goods and services at the same price, right? Using this alternate currency to Australian dollars or US dollars. So I think that's a really good one. The other thing is, for merchants, it's a great way to attract new users, right? And also publicity. So if you think about, if you're a small business owner, one of the ways to differentiate yourself is to open up, I guess, the payment gateway for people to pay with cryptocurrency. It's a great way to market yourself. Yeah, I think that's, to be honest, once you're able to, it doesn't exist. It exists in the air, right? It exists in code. This currency is code, right? When you can touch it in some way, whether that's by buying something or by getting paid for some service or good that you provided, but also when you mine, I bought everyone in my office a little USB miner, and they taught themselves about mining and script mining and what that meant, and they ran a node. So every single person in the office ran a node. What it teaches you, it gives you a different appreciation for what it is you're actually purchasing. Because you're not actually just purchasing another dollar with a different ticker. You're purchasing an entire network, a little share of an entire network. And so think about Bitcoin, and there's, what, I'm a bit off on the stats, 20,000 nodes, roughly, globally? I think it's
100,000, I think.
Oh, no.
Nodes.
Oh, well, it's a lot, right? So, full nodes? 100,000?
I think that's what I heard.
Whoa, okay, 100,000 full nodes, that's a lot. Yeah, okay, that's a good point. So let's just say there's 100,000, that's a lot. I'm impressed. But there's 100,000 full nodes there. So what that means is they've fully synced the blockchain, and so that they help verify that these transactions and the history of the entire blockchain, you're holding Bitcoin's history on your computer. It's incredible. And you can't do that when you spend an Australian dollar, you know. So I think it's a pretty amazing feeling, and when you get to actually involve yourself in the ecosystem, even if you're non-technical.
I think the other thing about retail pricing is that for a long time Bitcoin was very volatile. So if a retailer was pricing something in Bitcoin, then 3 days later it could be vary to 20% or whatever. So that has been a difficulty, and the reason is that when people look at pricing, if you see something in Australian dollars, that is your mindset for valuation. You don't convert it to euros or US dollars and say, oh, that's automatically expensive. You've got a mindset of thinking in terms of Australian dollars. So if you were using crypto as a currency and you had a mindset and thinking of that as value, then you would have an appreciation more of the price. Collectively, would have to have appreciation more of price stability. Whether that can be achieved, it would only achieve right at the top end of the S curve. And also the fractional prices are a problem with Bitcoin, where you've got 0.00063 for a cup of coffee. It just doesn't make any sense to the average user. And what we've done on Nexa is we moved the decimal point. So there's a million Nex, and with a 00 for the cents. So ultimately, it would make sense for retail pricing, but only if we achieve success widely.
I think that's an interesting point, the volatility, of the actual assets, and that will even out and it'll flatten and it'll get more flat as the market matures. So, but it's only going to mature if more people buy and more people will use. So like you were saying before, actually disposing of your cryptocurrency after you buy it and buying something and exchanging it for goods and services, that's a really good thing. When you put another cell on the network and someone else buys your coins, that's a great thing for the ecosystem because it helps even out the volatility. It's a slow burn, but it will. One of the interesting things, I was researching Coinbase futures, and so in my job, I sometimes accidentally get obsessed with things. And so I read all the filings. And one of the things I found extremely interesting in Coinbase's future filing when I was researching their Litecoin futures was that they made a comparison between Litecoin's stability over an 18-month period and that same 18-month period, the stability of oil futures and gold. And it was comparatively stable. And they used that to actually convince the SEC that Litecoin wasn't a huge risk for investors because these are some of the best known assets in the world that have futures products that have been traded as futures products for decades. And this new currency or this new asset class, it's comparatively volatile over the exact same period. And so I think the more comparisons we make with assets which have been in existence for a long time and trusted by institutions and retail investors and also the regulators, the more that will actually be mature and the space will reach maturation.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And it makes me think of the ETFs. You talk about gold and oil and people trading these assets on commodities markets and stuff. Now you have Bitcoin and Ether ETFs, probably soon Solana and a few others. Do you guys think that's a good thing? Litecoin, there you go, Nexa. Do you guys think that's good, or is it anti the crypto ethos, having institutions buying significant amounts of the supply?
Well, I'll answer one thing about currency in general, is it's got to be agnostic to the user, and that's gold is famous in that respect. Gold doesn't care who uses it, and I think crypto has to be the same. It's money. It's universally exchangeable. So we can't say, this is our money, we shouldn't have institutions doing stuff with it. That's something that we should just say, the more usage, the better, because it just emboldens the network effect, and so I think it's beneficial.
Respectfully, I'd have a different point of view. So, I mean, regardless of the fact that I'm not going to get fired for this because I've already said it before. Maybe 2 times and I will get fired, I'm not sure. I don't care. If they fire me, I'm no good. But Litecoin had a spot ETF filed and I had mixed emotions. It's great for the price, it's great for maturity in a lot of instances. It's great in the eyes of institutions. For me personally, as someone who believes in the space has the capability to even playing fields, I see it as another setback. It is another opportunity for institutions to take something which was created to get away from them. It's another opportunity for people who are wealthier, who are better financially literate, who have better education around these things and have exposure to pre-existing vehicles to put their money into, which are not the 90% of people, the top 10 and top 1% of people. They are going to get richer. The chasm between rich and poor will grow greater. It will become just another decade, another generation where the poorer get poorer. So, I mean, with my all of you hat on, I think it's great if you've invested in Bitcoin, Ethereum and Litecoin, because you've seen the price drive up with this news and announcement. For the people not here, I'm not so happy about it.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I mean, I think
Decentralized brothers.
Yeah,
look at this.
I mean, there's obviously like a significant risk here, which is that Bitcoin becomes a unit of account, right, and savings. Oh, but how do you actually spend stuff? Use our central bank digital currency for that, right? So I would, if you bought an ETF, then I would definitely recommend to also dabble in having some actual coin on your phone, right, in a wallet, and try to spend it.
But your keys. Talk
That's
about
right.
it.
That's right. Yeah, you're going to wake up someday and you're not going to be able to access, your stocks or your ETF, right? But if it's on your wallet, I call it like confidence in cash. And I've traveled a lot, and I swear, like, I was in Brazil once, and my credit card wasn't working, and the gas was in the car, right? Like, I thought that they were going to beat me up, right? But I had some cash hidden in my sock. So I was just, wait a second, right? Please. And with ubiquitous internet, crypto on your wallet is like confidence in cash, right? Thanks. So definitely that's the thing. And one other concern, I hate to mention it, but in the early days of Bitcoin, when it peaked out, it was easy for everyone to sell, right? And so I'm a little bit concerned about how actually ETFs might create additional volatility as everyone mashes the sell button like in a panic, compared to currently where the crypto people who were focused on the philosophy of it would hold through that stuff, thinking, I'll just weather this storm and I'll be good in a few months.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see the divide here. I think I'm with Andrew number one over here. I think I definitely get the counterpoints, but I think it's the access of Bitcoin to more people, I think, is a good thing, which makes me think about centralized exchanges. And I'd be curious to know what you guys think about that, because that's kind of like another way to give people an easier way to buy crypto, but it's not your keys. It's custody elsewhere. Do you think they're a net positive or a net negative? And maybe
Centralized exchanges are definitely a net positive to begin with, but probably the future is decentralized exchanges over the long term, and we're beginning to see that volume moving from one to the other. And if we go back to central bank digital currencies, I could see that that one of the things they'll clamp down on is the centralized exchanges. And then what we'll be left with is the decentralized ones, where users will agree to do atomic swaps between two different cryptos seamlessly on websites, whatever. That is going to be with us a very, very long time, I think.
So I think that centralized exchanges are easy ways to move in and out, but since they can get locked down in various jurisdictions and so forth, the buck stops at these decentralized techniques. And one thing that I've done in Nexa is created effectively what I call some technology that turns into effectively an open outcry network. And basically, you can hand someone a string of text or a QR code, and that is an offer to trade on the Nexa blockchain. You don't have to, and it's not a QR code that you scan and it goes to a website that lets you trade, right? That is an offer. And I don't know if you picked up one of those black envelopes that we were giving away, but in there was, you know, a QR code. And when you scan that, it wasn't like you went to a website and got money. That was money right in those bits. And so that's how we're working to create decentralized underlying systems.
I mean, personally, they're necessary evil. You know, like I think that the market needs liquidity, and the reality is centralized exchanges. Thanks, Binance. You should probably replace, anyway. But we need the liquidity. The difficulty is that there aren't many sophisticated off-ramps or on-ramps that aren't controlled by some sort of enterprise. I mean, KYC and AML laws, particularly in Australia, they're very strong. It's required by the vast majority of these services, and those that don't are not following regulation, and I would be very skeptical of using them. We used to have a thing called local Bitcoins, and that's how a lot of the people, if you see anyone who's like a drug addict looking guy like me, they'll probably know what it is, because I used to meet people in car parks and get a USB for $1,000, and there'd be $1,000 apparently of Bitcoin on there, and then you just trust that you plug it in. Don't worry about it. But the old days of the peer-to-peer and the hand-to-hand, I think they will come back. Personally, I believe that they will come back, and you can start seeing it with, you know, there are some wallets out there which are doing a really good job. I think Cake Wallet is one of the better wallets out there. They've implemented quite a good system for peer-to-peer. But I think the reality of centralized exchanges, whether it's Binance or any of the other exchanges, I think the reality is, have you guys heard of FTX? Yeah? SBF, you know that guy in jail? That can happen, right? And no offense, but I've got to whisper this one a little bit. Like CZ was in jail too, and he founded Binance. So you also have to be careful. Would you trust a business with all of your money, or even 10% of your money, if the founder had been in jail for something which was nefarious? And I know that politicians are crook, but the reality is the FTX it's not going to be the last one. And so when you buy cryptocurrency, if it's on a centralized exchange, please store it in a wallet. So like particularly a hardware or a cold storage wallet. Just Google them, find a good blog article, not by one of the exchanges. I'm happy to give you links to some. And I guess it's protect your own cryptocurrency. So it's not your crypto if you don't have the keys, yeah?
Yeah, I gave a talk yesterday, and one of the points I hammered home was get a hardware wallet. Like, custody your own assets. It costs, I don't know, $50 these days. If you have $1,000 of crypto, even if you have less, you hope for it to grow over time.
That's right.
It's a good learning experience as well. You go through the whole process. It feels good to have full control over your currency and your assets.
And if you're holding it for a long time, write it down on paper and put it in a safe away from a bushfire and leave it there.
I will just say there's something working against that at the moment, and that's with the proof of stake coins, where the exchange will stake for you. That provides a perverse incentive to leave your coins on an exchange, whereas really the whole point of crypto is being your own bank and taking delivery, as the guys have just said. So things are not straight in this space.
Yeah, it's a rocky road to get to where we want to get to, and a lot of the things that are cheered for are not necessarily for decentralization, and then the user experience is to be thought about as well. So we're a hell of a lot further along now than we were 10 years ago, and even 5 years ago, so that's improving. Yeah, we're running pretty low on time. Was there
Q&A? Should we do a question?
Q&A?
Anyone's
Yeah.
got questions?
Any more questions? We've got 5 minutes left over here.
I'm happy to be the runner if you want.
Yeah.
Robbie the runner.
Question's actually for you. So yeah, I'll set the question with two things. One is around, you talk about SegWit and Litecoin sort of adopting things arguably early. The second part is, originally we had sort of Bitcoin, which is just electronic cash, sending tokens to each other. It evolved into DeFi and Ethereum, stuff like that. So the question is, where does the Litecoin community sort of stand with things like OpCat and not actually being, so on Bitcoin they're trying to build DeFi, and so does Litecoin want to do that, or do they just want to stay sort of pure? What's their intention there?
Thank you for the question. That's a good question. So Hello. Yep, there we go. So just regarding the first question, it was about SegWit and the adoption of SegWit. So one of the benefits of Litecoin is that it was actually forked from Bitcoin as an altcoin. And so it shares a lot of its code base with Bitcoin. So one of the things that Charlie Lee, who was the creator, decided to do, and this is 2017, so the foundation was just getting started. He decided to, with the actual input of the community, and he discussed this with a lot of people who had been in the community for a long time, and obviously it had to be signaled by the miners. That's the consensus mechanism, getting consensus from the miners, and that's a bit of a story, so I'll just stop there. But that's one of the benefits of Litecoin, is that it can test things for Bitcoin and actually provide a relatively, if not, I'd say a 95% accurate reading on how it would be, how it would perform on Bitcoin, on Litecoin. So I think that's one thing. So it de-risks it for Bitcoin because it's already been proven on a test bed. The second thing in terms of, what was it? It was about Bitcoin and, DeFi. Litecoin just launched Wrapped Litecoin 9 days ago. So Wrapped Litecoin provides access or a bridge to the decentralized finance space. So you can access all the dApps and all that kind of stuff on Ethereum. I mean, do it if you want to. I don't care. I wouldn't. I think Litecoin's perfectly good as a currency, but if you want to be in that space, great. And it's one-to-one with Litecoin. So you can always trade back to Litecoin and have a currency. Thanks for
any
the
more
question.
questions? Yeah. Going once. Going twice. All right, maybe we use the last couple minutes then to go down the line. You want to just talk a little bit about Nexa, where people can find out more information? Anything else you wanted to mention before we wrap?
Yeah, what we've done with Nexa, just in a very short sentence, is we've created a fusion of Bitcoin and Ethereum, adding some of the Ethereum scripting, smart contract functionality onto Nexa, Bitcoin layer 1, and made it very scalable and applied many other improvements. I'll let Andrew say it a little bit more.
I guess I'd just like to say that Bitcoin is effectively digital gold, and Ethereum is a massively redundant computer with finance on top, and sorry. But Nexa is a financial blockchain, and we have some smart contracting stuff on top.
Can we shoot on blockchains? All right, I'll
Sorry.
go. Ton, sui. No. All right. If you want to see what Litecoin's up to, you can go to litecoin.net. There's resources on there for everything. We're a decentralized currency, so there's nothing about, we're not trying to sell you Litecoin. We talk about Bitcoin. We talk about how to protect yourself in terms of security, safety, centralized exchanges versus decentralized exchanges, all that kind of stuff. My latest project with Litecoin is called VPM, Virtual Private Money, and the focus is in developing countries and countries which are facing, I guess, the worst threats of financial privacy and economic liberty. So that's a free service, and that will always be free, and I've said it will always be free. And yeah, so you can check out the white paper, which I wrote on a plane, but it's still okay, and that's on vpm.run. That is vpm.run. Thank you.
Amazing. And for Nexa, you guys have a booth still? Are people there?
Yeah, we've got a booth down the end. Please come by. We've almost handed out all our merchandise. Nexa.org if you feel like checking it out.
Beautiful. There we go. Well, thank you to all three of my co-panelists, and thank you everyone for turning up. We
Thanks so
hope
much,
you
Zen.
enjoyed the talk.
Thank you.